Well, hey guys, welcome back to Faith Reframed. My name is Jesse. Here we try to help you reframe your faith rather than lose it. Here we have a very special guest today. It's not really part of our Back to Bethel series, but it goes right in line with what we've been covering with Shawn Foy. As many of you know, the recent video with Shawn Foy, it's gotten like almost 35,000 views. It's just crazy. There's been a lot going on. And as you guys know, I wasn't just someone who participated in the burn, but I was kind of networked in the burn. Knew a lot of people, and some of the original signers of that document, the Truth and Freedom Project website that we were reading off of on our last video. I've been added to a kind of a group discussion with them and many of those people, and we're probably going to be interviewing more than just these guys, but some of the people off that team. And so I wanted to use my platform to interview these people to help you guys get to know them more. Get to know their story, not just what's on the website or in the letter, but kind of get to know their background more and just kind of give their voice a place to resonate, I guess you could say. That being said, I'm excited to have these guests on. As always, keep it respectful in the comments. They actually have their own YouTube channel called Grace and Conviction, which we'll be talking about. It's going to be linked in the comments below or in the video description. So I'd love for you guys to go over there. They go much like myself with my faith journey and how I deconstructed to atheism and eventually found my faith again. Their story's similar. They didn't go as crazy as I did all the way to atheism, but they have a really cool story and kind of parallel lines. And so if you're coming out of the prayer movement, out of IHOP, out of charismatic world, our paths cross quite a bit, and you're going to hear that throughout this interview. So I'm excited to have Peter and Amanda on, and I hope you guys are blessed by this and really enjoy it. So thank you. Peter, Amanda, you're here.
Westwood, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. Amanda, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
This is so wild because we really don't know each other super, super well, but we know so many of mutual friends super well. And it's such a burn thing to not know someone,
Yeah.
but know someone.
Absolutely.
Where it's like
that's the thing I love most about the burn community.
Yeah.
Is that it's like you don't have to explain. You just know. You just understand.
it's like total shirt off your back kind of people. Like I don't know how many times I've had a worship set where like, hey, my drummer is gone. And the drummer's like, well, I just finished a 3-hour set, so I still got another 3 hours in me. so you do another set, and it's cool, man. So, well, hey, we have so much to go over. I'm excited to do it. Let's just kind of start with really kind of who you guys are, a little bit about your background, kind of your journey in the charismatic world, and just who is Peter and Amanda, and what should people know about you guys?
We are a unit. That's about all you need to know.
Absolute unit. I love it.
We're a package deal. It's funny because it's like we were talking about that this morning. It's like it's been that way forever. We've just been together.
Yeah.
And we've been together in everything. We've been through the gauntlet of life, as I said in our first episode. And gosh, I love you.
Love you too.
I'm so thankful for you.
I wish I had Kaylee right here to reciprocate this, but she's in bed. But
It's
Kaylee, I love you.
It's late. Yeah. Man, it's so great to walk through life with your best friend. And I introduce her every episode. This is my wife, my best friend.
That's awesome.
And it is just such a joy to not walk through things and kind of, we walk through stuff alone for sure. Like we have our own struggles and our own things that we have to work through internally, but like to do that with your best friend and to like be able to just be completely, in sync is such a gift. And so anyway, I love my wife.
That's awesome.
And so that's who we are. I was raised in a charismatic Christian church that was heavily influenced by the Vineyard movement and various others. So names like Randy Clark from Toronto, that whole world. And then the Assemblies of God influence with the Brownsville Assemblies of God down in Pensacola.
Yep.
Dr. Michael Brown came out of that. For me, I was a worship leader. I grew up playing music ever since I was, could hold a guitar pick or.
Did you start on keys or guitar? I was always curious about that.
Yeah, I did actually. I always wanted to be a drummer. And my mom would play. She plays violin. My whole family's musical, but my mom would play in this orchestra this is a side story, but it's kind of relevant actually to our story. She would play violin in the orchestra for the Passion Play at the local Assemblies of God church that Shawn Foy grew up in, actually.
Okay.
And so one after, and then actually our youth pastor at my church used to be, he was the one that played Jesus in the Passion Play at this Assemblies of God church. And so after one of the services, my mom introduced me to the drummer from the orchestra, and a man named Peter Wall. His radio name is Peter Christian. He's a well-known radio personality, does a lot of ads and all that. And he said, if you want to learn drums, I'd encourage you to take piano lessons first to get the musical chops and, theory.
Such good
and,
advice.
Understanding how to separate your left and your right hand and all that. And I can play drums. I'm not great. I don't feel confident on the drums, but I can play drums. But piano certainly was, I took classical lessons, Suzuki method. And then I learned, my dad taught me acoustic guitar when I was 13. And then I told him, I said, I want to play. My dad played in church, self-taught, worship leader. And I said, Dad, I don't want to take piano lessons. I want to play like what you play in church. And so he taught me The Power of Your Love, that song, Lord, I come to you, let my heart be changed. That song. That was the first song I ever learned on piano. And that was a fast change between the verse and the chorus. And I played that over and over and over. And once I kind of figured it out, he was like, if you can get that, you can get just about any other worship
song. That's about as technical as it gets.
So, right. Yeah. So that was my musical journey. And then growing up in a church, there was a lot of this charismatic influence from the Vineyard movement and Assemblies of God and other influences that shaped my view. But then I also was going to this small Christian school that was very Baptist in influence, and that's where Shawn Foy went to that school as well. He was a grade ahead of me, and so I didn't know him real well.
You grew up with Shawn, which is pretty cool. I mean, like that's like it's, and that's kind of the idea, is like contextualizing. It wasn't like Shawn's just a random guy you found leading worship. You got history with him. Like you grew up with them, same town, same families, kind of running around together, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a time where when we were doing the burn with him, we brought him into Missoula and did worship at a local church that was led by my youth pastor. He had gone on to start a different church, Assemblies of God Church, that Amanda and I actually were on staff at their church for a season.
Oh, nice.
And so we had brought Shawn in, and we did a thing at that church, and of course, the pastor knew Shawn, and his kids and Shawn knew each other from school. So we all kind of knew the same people growing up because we were in the same small little community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Amanda, did you grow up? Were you in the Montana area the whole time, or like?
No, I was born in South Florida,
and
moved when I was 3 to Salt Lake City. And so I lived there until I was 9. And actually my family was a part of a cult pretty much until I was 13 years old. We were part
You're dropping this bomb on me? What?
I withheld that one for me.
Mormon? Were you guys Mormons?
No, but all of our friends were Mormon, so I had like a lot of heavy Mormon ideology.
What?
In me as well. We were part of the Way Ministries International, which is still alive and going well. Yes.
Peter, you don't talk for the rest of the time. I need Amanda's stories from like now on.
Amen. She can have it.
And so that's how I grew up. And then when my family moved from Salt Lake to Montana, when I was summer before I was like 10, we were still a part of the Way. And then it was around like summer before my freshman year. So I think I was about 14 years old when my family found the church that Peter was actually going to, had grown up in. And it was very, very charismatic. So, and I also went to a Catholic high school, and we went to mass. And so I had a cult and Mormonism and Catholicism, and now hypercharismania. The journey of sifting through all of those weird ideologies for the last several years has
thought my deconstruction was complicated, but yours is like, I had like, I always tell people, like, I'm like a purebred charismatic. Like that's all I really knew. A little bit of like Methodism in there and stuff, but like, geez, that's crazy.
So when I'm like, it's amazing that like we're still serving the Lord at this point in our lives, reflecting back over like everything we've gone through and just our upbringings and stuff. It truly is nothing shy of a just the grace of God that we're still here. But we expound on our background and our journey in our podcast, Grace with Conviction. So
gracewithconviction.com is the URL.
Yeah, you guys are professional. You have a website. I need to do that.
I know.
It's all him. That's all him.
I'll give you a hand.
So that helps a lot with your background. So that charismatic background does kind of contextualize everything, because one of the things with the charismatic background is kind of anything goes. At least kind of that's a lot of the premise. I'm not saying all charismatics are just void of discernment, but especially in that like 2000 to 2010 era, it's like the charismatic world was just on fire and blowing up in so many ways. Between Lakeland, Bethel hitting the scene, IHOP was getting big. The young adults were flocking to charismatic churches in droves. And that's kind of seems like where you guys really got your feet wet. So during that time, like, so I guess that you got connected with Shawn obviously through growing up with him, but how did you guys get connected specifically with the Burn in that era? Like when did that come into play?
Yeah. So I went to, after I graduated high school, I went to the University of Montana for a couple of years, and I was getting my business administration and marketing degree and focusing on media arts, but I really wanted to do something more with music. And so I also wanted to do ministry. Like I wanted to do something with music ministry. Yeah. And, I was aware of the House of Prayer in Kansas City. Bethel wasn't really popular yet, and I didn't know much about Bethel at the time. It was starting to become more. Was
that like 2006 at that point?
2005. Well, so I went to the university, or I went to IHOP in 2005. Okay. Did the One Thing internship. And so it was only 6 months. I wasn't like there for a long time, but we would travel down regularly. We would travel down to go to One Thing conferences. Right. We would road trip, like 24-hour road trips from Montana to Kansas City, take, mob a whole group of us down there. And just really like, there was that during high school. It's like to get down to IHOP and to get part of that and to do prayer and worship 24/7. I mean, there can't be a better life than that, and being an intercessory missionary and, getting people to support you financially to go sit in a prayer room. It sounds pretty cool when you're 19 years old. And, but then I got there and I think the mystique of it just sort of wore off once you get into it. I was housemates with Corey Asbury, and Corey and I were like on the team of people that worked out at Shiloh. And so we did a lot of we had a lot of fun experiences. That's cool. And then Corey and I led the teams. Like there was a intern band. So Corey and I took turns and played on each other's bands. And so, but then after that, I was watching all these people in my internship go off and do cool things, and it just nothing really hit for me. And so I was like, I need to find my own thing. I need to find my own lane. So I went and got my audio engineering certification. I went to audio school and got my certification in that. And then I'm like, man, I've got a best friend back in Montana that I want to marry, and I'm tired of not being together, and I don't want to hit the road or be in the studio all the time mixing audio. Like I want to be married to my best friend. So I went back to Montana, we got married, and then I was like, all right, ministry, music, let's kind of go that direction. And so, I was having a conversation one time. I was talking to a former teacher at the school I grew up in, and he said, hey, have you heard, Shawn Foy? You remember Shawn from school? And he's went off and did YWAM, and now he started this
He started YWAM. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then he went to Oral Roberts University and started Burn 24/7 in his dorm room. And they're having these fiery grassroots prayer and worship times in their dorm. And it just felt like, hey, there's something hot. Like it's not IHOP. Right. It's like, it's at home. It's like IHOP, but at home and way more unhinged, just like you can go for it. And there's not this structure. It's not a model.
IHOP also has like this. I always tell people when I look at IHOP compared to other charismatic streams, it is like the dark horse in a way, where there's Bethel's kind of like anything goes, get drunk in the spirit, have fun. Morning Star had that kind of vibe too, but they were a bit more serious with Leonard and the music. But then IHOP was we are filling the bowls of intercession to bring the return of Christ. It's like, easy.
Yeah.
It's like, take it easy. But there was like a serious reverence there. And so it must have been a breath of fresh air going from like that and like in sanctity and holiness and sanctification. Like that's a big thing there, which I always say, like, if that was put in the right direction, that could be something good. But it's like, it's so twisted at some points. But so you're coming from that to like, you know, basically house worship nights with Shawn must have been like must have been really attractive.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was like a group of people, I can't remember what they were called, but there was a group of people that had put out this little worship album. It was called like it wasn't Waterdeep, but it was one of those like kind of hippie worship bands.
I know what you're talking about.
Enter the Worship Circle?
It was like no, it wasn't them either. It was like a not a well-known group, but it was like this group that had put out this like this house worship album, and it was like obviously done in a living room, and it was like djembes and a piano and a couple guitars, and then a room full of people, kind of like what United Pursuit was doing a little bit in the early days, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, I don't want the big stage and the live streaming and all. And I was at IHOP before God TV came in. It was the brown walls and all that. And so so whatever Shawn was doing really felt like maybe there's a connection there where we can find our rhythm in this ministry worship. I knew most of the worship leaders in my town. I knew most of them, and I thought I can connect people. Then I could fill a 24-hour set, no problem. Most of these people had no grid for 24/7 Davidic worship. That this is like. And a lot of these people were at denominational churches that had no charismania whatsoever. But I thought we could figure out a way to incorporate and get, light the incense in Missoula and, raise up the worship and prayer level and get some supernatural things happening, let's do it. And, I always joked, and I thank you, Lord, this is my joke. I was like, I'm not a Mike Bickler. I'm not the guy to go like stand on the stage and rally the troops, like I'm the guy behind the scenes that takes guys like Mike and like, hey, you need help building your platform and building all your stuff. Like I can help with that. So I think I saw that with Shawn, like with what Shawn was doing, like we could do something really cool here. And so it was very pure. It was very purely motivated. I connected with Shawn on MySpace. We started talking, and it was like this instant connection. Right.
Back in the day.
And then he's like, I remember he messaged me one time. I was like, hey bro, I don't really like hang out on MySpace all that much. Like, you want my cell phone number? We can just text. I'm like, oh yeah, I want your cell phone number. Let's talk. Like, let's do this. And so we started talking, so I could say that like in early days, there was like this instant connection. Like we just, it was kind of like I found the missing piece, and this is like the person that understands me. He understands where like what I'm missing is like this sort of vision or purpose or direction. So anyway, we could go more into that. We'll probably ask some more questions that'll go into more depth. But that was sort of the initial inception to the connection there.
And Amanda, you obviously were in the picture during that time as well. You guys were married this time, I'm assuming.
Yep. So we had gotten married the beginning of 2007 in January. And so I didn't know him, but like having gotten married in like Missoula's not a big town. So especially when you're in the church world, you kind of, everybody knows everybody. And I think having him, having grown up in that church his whole life, and then me from the time I was 14, so a lot of years in that church, it definitely felt like we were ready to kind of step out on our own. It felt like we can't grow up in this church. Like people have these ideas about who you are, and they won't really let you, feels like they won't really let you grow up. You'll always just be this little punk 13-year-old wreaking havoc on all the leaders' lives, apparently. And, and so for me, we were very much like, what are we going to do? Who are we? And what does ministry and this walk with God look like for us? And so, when he found this connection, because I did IHOP, I did Fire in the Night for just 3 months in 2005 when they were starting to, when God would come in and they were starting to rework the prayer room. And, for me, that was not a good environment for me to be in. But still, I saw the value in prayer and worship. And so, when he kind of brought it to me, and there's this guy and, all this stuff, I was like, well,
this
cool.
happens.
Yeah, sure. And, and I remember like the time before we even started the burn, Shawn and Kate came out. And I think just to kind of like meet, we did like a little thing. And I remember like the night that they left, we dropped him or said goodbye. I think we dropped him at the airport, but like coming home and just crying and feeling like, oh my gosh, we've met friends, like deep friends who understand us, who love the Lord. Being able to like talk with Kate was the first time I felt like I'd ever talked to someone that I could talk about God with, and it wasn't weird. And like, and so it was like, it felt like for us a very quick, deep heart connection that we had with these people. So
and that really is true to kind of like the like with Bethel, for instance, they talk about how you get so close to people so quickly, but a big part of that's because you're both running towards the same thing. And so like you could be on this side of the pyramid and someone's the other side of the pyramid, but you're both going this way, and so you meet so quickly. And I can attest to that. Like it's during that time, especially with the worship and prayer movement at IHOP was starting to like, get more coverage with God TV, but also just worship in general was kind of going through a really bit of an evolution. It was going from like the Hillsong big arena anthem, which everyone knew and did and led, to like this really organic grassroots thing that I think, to Shawn's credit, he saw and tapped into. Like that was the thing where he saw people weren't wanting just a standard, 30-minute, one fast, one medium, one slow set, that people wanted to really actually worship the Lord. And that's something like I don't know how you guys been working through that, especially now that you're where you're at now theologically, that like I look at those moments of worship. Like Kaylee and I would always take the night shift. Like we loved like the 12 to 3, 12 to 4 sets. And Kaylee more so than me, but I came to like them, but she really wanted them. But her thing was like just how passionate, and like you knew the people that were there wanted to be there. And that just meant the world to her. It's like she wanted to get rid of the noise, get rid of the hype, and just like she's like, I'd rather have 4 people in here face down the floor worshiping with me, like in that moment, than an arena full of like 100, 200, 300, 1,000 people every time. And I love that about her. And I think that's what Shawn's really tapping into. And I guess when you find someone like that, especially in a moment where that wasn't normal, it's like it really makes you come alive real quick. So
oh my gosh.
Well, it kind of segues though into the idea of like, so what were those some of the things that when you guys were first working with them, if, in that area, like what was, cause you ran with them for about 2 years in that season. What were like, if you had a highlight moment or something that like was, because we can always look back at things and get jaded, but obviously you were there for a reason. So what were things that like in those moments during that span that were like highlights for you, or things that maybe you're like, wow, we're doing something, like we're actually building something, or you felt like you were actually working towards something?
I could talk to that, but if you have something on top, go for it.
I just, me personally, and then I'll let you talk, because he was really more of an integral part to the burn than I was. I don't play an instrument really. I can plunk on the piano a little bit.
You led sets though.
I led sets.
Yeah, you did.
But
your sets were my favorite too. I loved sitting down and watch. And I would jump up and play with you every once in a while, but your sets were awesome. I love your sets.
And vocally, I wasn't very strong. So like, as far as like doing stuff when we would travel with Shawn, I was really just in the background, kind of could just disappear and not be a big part. I was just with him and, moving in this direction.
Were you my groupie?
I was your groupie.
That moment.
and so I think like good moments for me was just feeling like for once we kind of had something of our own, spiritually speaking. Yeah. And some of the relationships we were beginning to make, some of the people we met that came out of the burn in various, not just in Montana, but in other surrounding states that we began to build lasting, relationships with. And so I think for me, it felt like, I don't know, this just sense of like individuality as a married couple, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, a big part of,
we were establishing our own friends and our own our own thing. And so that kind of for me was like what really sticks out is like if I could extrapolate sweet moments, that would be
that's
it.
good.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was kind of what I was going to say. And I think it was in the more in line. It wasn't about like, I'm building this cool platform for myself and I'm going to be famous now. It was like, yeah, we have something that's really meaningful. And it wasn't even about like, God, look at all the things I'm doing for you. Aren't you happy with me? It was just because honestly, I was good. Like I'm saved. I said the prayer. And so I don't need to impress God. Like I'm his favorite, right? Like I'm his favorite one. What am I thinking? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? I want to know. Like, like there's that like, but so for me, it was more just like, hey, we're like connecting with some really amazing people that have the same kind of heart. And I could see like we were helping Burn in Bozeman to get off the ground. We helped to launch the Burn in Vancouver, Canada. We helped to get the Burn in Rapid City, South Dakota off the ground. We connected with several others around in Montana, in small towns in Montana. That there was an Amish community that Ray Hughes was really connected with.
That was really cool.
And we went up there one time, and it was so beautiful. Like they sang a song of blessing over us. That was like, I mean, it was. I don't know. Today, I still think of it to this day. The song and this group of Amish people sang this blessing that still makes me cry when I think about it. It was so pure and it was so beautiful. So I mean, that kind of stuff. I have those memories, and so I think that, and I'll jump. I'm just sort of jumping forward, but I think that decoupling from all of that has been very painful or over the years, and I don't think that I've even fully realized how much pain I've been carrying inside of my heart for so many years that I just swallowed. And we can talk more about that, but because all of that was, it was life, man. It was everything. It was, and it's our ministry, and it's like, I see the future, I see where we're headed, and it's just beautiful.
Well, that's really, I mean, I talked about this a little bit, I think, like 2 videos ago I was making, but it's this idea of vision, and and it kind of goes into this church, the way a church is run or a ministry is run versus what the biblical standard is. And a lot of times when you get vision and you get mandate of like, this is what we're supposed to do, that mandate becomes more important than the biblical, I guess, structure or accountability or standard. It's like, this is a mandate that we have to do. And when you say it out loud, you kind of cringe, but when you think about it, when you're in the midst of it, like you like, well, people, like I have so many people like in the comments of my last video of like, well, why did you not say anything? It's like, well, because you honestly believe that God has told this person that this is what they're called to do, and that you're playing a part in fulfilling this mandate and prophecy. So why would you mess that up? Like, why would you throw a wrench in that gear? Why would you stop what God has blessed? And so that kind of segues into this, I guess, the next part where it's like, we're having these good moments, but like, what, in the midst of all that, and those couple years you're doing this, what was the first point when you guys started having some sort of red flag or some sort of like, or a gut check or something was like, ooh, that doesn't feel like the first time we met. Like things started kind of feeling like a little icky. What was that for you guys?
It happened. I mean, I'll let you talk, but I'm gonna say like it happened pretty quick. Like I wish I could say we lived in this like honeymoon phase for a really long time, but it started to really reveal itself pretty quick.
When you say pretty quick, like a couple weeks, couple months, like
probably a couple, because like we met them in like 2008, kind of towards the tail end or mid 2008.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that first trip where they came out and visited us was like, that was that was the mountaintop moment. And then every other experience from there there were things that happened that would, well, I'll say this. We went to Bozeman and we were helping the Bozeman burn get off the ground. And there was a gas explosion downtown Bozeman that, and it blew up a building. I can't remember. I actually just looked up the news article today to see if I could find it. And I can't remember. I don't know if somebody actually died or not. So you could fact check that and look that up. But it was in 2009.
I think anybody did. I think it was pretty miraculous.
It was,
everybody was out of the building.
Yeah, but it was like a commercial building or like a restaurant or something, like downtown Bozeman, and there was a huge gas explosion, natural gas, and it blew up. It was it was all over the news, and Shawn just latched onto that, like, this is a prophetic sign. This is the same night that we launched the burn in Bozeman and everything like that. And I remembered that the local news media and a lot of people on social media thought, did this guy go start that? Did he blow up that building?
Oh,
because the way that he framed his, he what he did was he saw a news story and he saw an opportunity to attach himself to it to bump up his visual, his optics in Bozeman and around the area. Because, hey, we just launched this burn in Bozeman and there's this gas explosion and we launched this burn and it's a burn and explosion and, and then people thought, did you explode that building?
Didn't you get stopped in the airport by
security
officials?
There was security. When he was leaving, there was security officials that like questioned him about it and everything. And it was like, that was a little unnecessary, dude. Like, you didn't need to do that. And it was like, why are you trying to build your platform on a tragedy like that?
Early on, it's like weird. A weird. I was not expecting that answer. like honestly, that's so strange to think of like that early on. Because like I mean, one of the common things we'd always say when we're at the burn was always do it for the gram. Like we'd say like it was like a common mantra, like do it for the gram, and it was like it was always a fun like get on the hype train, do something. But like that early on, to there be a literal gas explosion and.
Well, and then on that same trip, the very next day, there was a 4.2 magnitude earthquake that happened in Whitehall. Whitehall is between Missoula and Bozeman. And so we were traveling from Bozeman back to Missoula, and we were all like in the car. There was a whole mob of us, a couple cars. And there was a 4.2 magnitude earthquake and another explosion in downtown Whitehall. And there was a fire. We didn't know about the earthquake at the time. Mm-hmm. But as we're driving, we see this huge plume of smoke off the highway. And so Shawn's like, we got to go check that fire out.
Stop, pull the car over, we have to go.
So we drove into downtown Whitehall, and there's this bar, this downtown building that's like in flames, engulfed. And Shawn is taking selfie videos and whatever. And then by that point, I think he had figured out that there was an earthquake. And there was a 4.2 magnitude earthquake. And I'm here in Montana, and we did this lunch is burn. There was an explosion in Bozeman last night. And, it's just this bigger than life. And I was like, what do I say to this? Like, I didn't even know what to do with it. But of course, like you said, it's do it for the gram. You just sort of play along, because you feel like, well, I'm in it, like I'm a part of this. And so, okay, I'll go along. This is like, it feels kind of like a game, I guess. It's kind of weird.
Let's juxtapose this though. So like, for instance, when I got diagnosed with type 1, it was one of the first big moments for me with my new understanding of scripture and theology, where I was really placed with how do I understand suffering and how do I pray for this? Because before it would be declarative prayer, deny, claim, and I'd go for it.
Yep.
But that was the first time for me where I was able to take my theology and really apply it in a real world situation. It's like, thank you. Like, in my suffering, this is making me like Christ. I will pray for my healing. I will ask for my healing. But in my suffering, I know this is making me like Christ. And it was a really touching moment for me. And I look back at other situations, like where did I miss that opportunity? So like with where you guys are at now theologically and your understanding of, the gifts or prophecy or scripture, how do you look back at that now? And what would you say to that? What would you say to Peter and Amanda now then compared to then? Like, what would you, like, how quickly would you be like, absolutely not, compared to where you were then?
Well, I think right now I'd be like, all right, peace, we're out. Like that.
Run.
Like, I mean, because you can't explain, like, for someone like that that's so gung-ho and so like set in their ways, that you can't reason with them like, hey, that's not biblical. That's that's something that the Lord has to reveal to them. And so, I mean, you can't reason your way out of that. I mean, we would have been long gone. But I think that in the moment it was just, kind of what you like. It was consistent with our theology,
right?
Yeah, but I also think, like, for me, I couldn't draw the parallels. I couldn't see how someone coming into a town could cause a building to explode.
Yeah,
or
it's like what do you do with that?
Fires.
Yeah, are you saying like God's causing?
Yeah, like why would God
blow up a building?
What purpose does that serve when So I always go back and we talk about this a lot in our podcast. Even though we were in the midst of like hyper charismatic and this thing with the burn and other ministry ventures we were a part of, there was still always a very skeptical part of us. And I really think the Lord was preserving us. Like, we just could never get fully on board. And I think that's honestly why so many of those ministry ventures kind of ended up breaking down the way they did, is because we just weren't yes people.
Right.
And we were kind of like,
you were meant
I don't know, like we stomached a lot. Yeah, before we finally would like actually then be like, okay, I think we need to address this. Like, enough is enough. This has gone on long enough. Let's address this. And so even through all of it, I know, like, for me, especially just kind of sitting on the outskirts a little bit, I felt it's just a little like, what is going on?
What was
right
that
now?
thing for
Like,
you
what-
guys
like,
that put you at that point, going from like, because I didn't have that. I was more reckless abandon, probably because I came out of Bethel where like everything goes. It's like, yeah, we're getting like we're choking the
Right.
Holy Ghost. That's cool. It's like
Right.
we're literally.
Right. And we had a lot of friends who did that. I mean, we were surrounded by.
God bless you for having that
all of
skepticism.
that.
I needed a dose of that.
I think it's funny because my mom, when we started attending the church after we came out of the way, and they were so swept up in charismatic craziness, and so
More
my
of the
mom,
Randy Clark.
yeah, my mom was constantly taking me up to Toronto and all of that, and I think that, so my mom was like fully on board. My dad was much more like,
Good job, Dad.
I don't know, like, I'm not like, and so I think from a distance, being a teenager, not really understanding or recognizing, I think I noticed that. And so I had a natural, and also because I never would fully experience the Holy Spirit outpouring. I never quite got that. And so there was like, that leads in that world a lot to like, there's something wrong with me. God doesn't love me.
Break off depression.
I'm grieving. Yeah. All of that stuff. But it was happening to others, but it wasn't for me, and I'm looking around just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know what I think about all of this.
What was the thing then for you guys? Because you're going through all this, like you got the mandate, you feel like you're helping build something, like you're really establishing yourselves as a couple, and yet, I mean, early on you're seeing this happen, but you're still going, like you're still doing it. That didn't, as maybe jarring as that was, you still kept going. But what was the thing that kind of like, the things that you saw firsthand where you were like, okay, now we're ready to really consider stepping down? Like, was it a death by 1,000 cuts? Was it like a E tu Brute moment with Caesar? Or was it like, what was it for you where you were like, or was it, like I said, was it time after time where you got there?
We go through them. Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple key ones. I think there was a moment when we went down to Salt Lake City, and we went to the church. The burn director in Bozeman I think she was from Salt Lake. She still had family down in Salt Lake, and they were connected to this church in Salt Lake that was actually very closely connected to the church I grew up in. In fact, I think a lot of the people in the church in Salt Lake were sent out. I think that it was a church plan of the church I grew up in. And so I knew the pastor, I knew the pastor's son, and I knew a lot of the people in that church. And so, and then of course the burn director in Bozeman was from that area, and I think her parents went to that church as well. So there was just kind of like this family connection, and this is great. Well, so we're going to do this Mountain West tour, and we're going to go down to Salt Lake, and we're going to start there, and we're going to come up and go through, hit some different spots on the way back, end up in Montana, and then ultimately I think on that tour ended up in Rapid City, and that was when the burn Rapid City started. So we're in Salt Lake, and we it was the first time I ever met Brandon Hampton. He played on
what a legend.
was on that tour with us. That was a lot of fun. playing with him. And then, so I mean, for me, I'm like, this is just a blast to get to play with some, like from Missoula and not ever playing. Like I was at IHOP, so, but a lot of us even at IHOP were young, developing musicians. Yeah. And so getting to play with people like, and Brandon was at IHOP too. So I think I had met him a couple of times, but I never played with him. And so that was like, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a lot of fun, this little tour. And this first stop, and at the end of the service, Shawn we were kind of out in the lobby waiting and wondering what's Shawn up to? Like he's taking forever. And he comes out and he had been in a meeting with the senior pastor, again, who I have like, you know, I kind of grew up around his, you know, we were all in the community. And he's like, the offering that they gave me was pathetic. It was horrible. Like it was offensive. And so I was in there telling him like, you need to do better than that. Like this is a waste of my time. And they were basically like, they were shocked that he was, you know, bringing them out, squeezing them for more money. And they were like, we gave you everything that came in. Like we didn't get any more. It's not like
a new church plant too. It's not like they're, you know.
Well, actually, no, this church had been established for quite a while, but it just whatever. And I have no idea what the offering was. It just wasn't up to his standards. And this is a kind of the silver or the scarlet thread that goes through the whole story. It goes through your story and pretty much everybody else that's had any experiences with Shawn. We never got paid anything. We hardly ever got reimbursed for anything. Pretty much all travel expenses and everything that went along with any travel was all completely
and full stop on that real quick, because this is a constant criticism I'm hearing. I just want to you brought it up. So it's not like I'll speak for myself and you guys can, you know, thumbs up if you're with me on it.
Yeah.
None of us did this stuff, at least in my crew, for money. Right? It's not for money. There's a heart for it. And this discussion isn't for money. And
not at all.
It's not because Shawn now has money. Like none of that is the case. Like I can't stress that enough, where it's not one of those things where Shawn was a small fish, now he's a big fish, and now we're little fish shaking our fist at the big fish. Like that's not at all what this is. It is, and just getting that out there, because that's one of the things I keep seeing is like, well, why'd you keep doing it? Like, why didn't you stay? It's like, well, because when you're there, we loved it. Like that was a thing. Like, like when people,
it was our ministry.
Right. And like, but even still, it's your ministry. It's like, right. But then also, like you said, like in reality, it costs money to travel. It costs money to eat. It costs money. Also, I think, and it's easy to say, here's what I would have done. But I think even in any kind of situation, if you have a bunch of volunteers, or like, for instance, whenever I would lead worship places, even as a quote unquote small fish, if I got an honorarium, the first thing I'd always do is say, okay, where do you guys want to eat? Because, you know, this isn't enough for all of us to get paid, but I could probably cover dinner for everyone. Like I would lead worship at a church, and it'd be like, you know, maybe 6 people playing worship with me. I'd get $300. I'm like, this could cover gas and food. You guys want to do that? Cool. Like that's what we're doing, right?
Right.
And so I'll have to say, so that was the kind of the first thread there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you jumped in on that, because that was sort of where I was going with that. And I want to clarify that for sure. None of this was about the money. I mean, we were taking work off to go do these things, fully knowing that we're not going to get reimbursed for the time off that we're taking, but that wasn't the point. But there was sort of this dangled carrot of, hey, we'll reimburse you. Like if there's any money left over, we'll reimburse you for gas or for any of your expenses out of pocket. Just keep receipts or whatever. But, you know, then you give receipts and they just sort of magically disappear into the ether. And then, but anyways, but to know that he was wringing them out for more money and wasn't happy with that, that just hurt me. Like it hurt my heart, because I know these people and it would, well, regardless of whether I knew them or not, it was horrible. But there was like a family effect. It affected me in a way that I'm like, oh man, this affects my relationships. Not that I was closely knit to these guys, but it like there's a, what do they call it? Like a guilty by association. Like you sort of are like, well, I'm with this guy and he's just grifting over here. And so anyway, so then that, and then knowing that there's no money for anybody else. And, you know, and so, that was a really hard one, to stomach. And then also I knew he was selling all kinds of merch. He was making a ton of money on merch, which is fine. It's his stuff. He, that's how he makes his living. I had no problem with that. But there was just like a discrepancy in where was the money going, how was it flowing, and how was it being handled? And it seemed like it was all just kind of going into his pocket, and then he was just in and out onto the next thing. And so then that was a big one. And then when we went up to Vancouver, that was a tough one because we were essentially told, hey, don't worry, we'll cover your gas, we'll cover your food. We'll make sure you have a place to stay. Who are we staying with? Well, don't worry about it. We'll have a place for you to stay. All that.
We were so underprepared.
We were so underprepared to cross an international border at the Olympics with a giant
Olympic situation.
Yep.
Giant flight case in the back of my car that looks, it's a giant black flight case with all my gear, my keyboard case and all my rack gear and everything. And so we get to the border. What are you guys doing over here? What are you trying to do? Like,
we said we're launching a burn.
You didn't.
Launching a burn? Like, we're idiots. You don't say bomb in an airport.
At this point, you guys, I guess Shawn didn't have like the debrief border crossing script. No. I got the border crossing script. You didn't.
No way.
No. We were left to our
We were hung out to dry. And also, we didn't know who we were staying with. So they're like, well, where are you staying?
I don't know.
Well, we're staying with some people. The people that have set up this whole thing have organized it all for me. Well, are you guys getting paid? Well, no, we're not getting paid. We're just coming up to, how are you going to survive? Well, we've got money. They made us go back to the ATM and print out a debit receipt to show we had money. Dude, we had $300 in our bank account.
Oh my gosh.
And that was barely enough for them to allow us to cross the country.
What a sobering moment.
Yeah, that was after they asked us to get out of our car and go wait inside. And we're literally watching people get detained, like handcuffed. And we're just
I had it bad.
Panicking.
Like, I made a Facebook post.
Do? Like, I can't get arrested. I'm like, I can't go to jail. I will not survive.
I will not survive in jail.
And so then they're like, you need to go back, show proof that you have finances. And we did, and we showed them, and they were still like,
all right,
fine, go. It's like, they let us through. And we were supposed to pick up Shawn and Kate from the airport, and we're like panicking. Like, we're not going to make it in time. We have no way to get in touch with them.
Oh, because they flew in.
I don't know.
You guys drove.
They flew in, and we drove in. And sure enough, when we got to the airport to pick them up, they had gotten detained as they were trying to, come through customs. And
I think probably it had something to do with all of his merch. There was because he had said something about like having all this stuff, that was like they were looking through at customs. They were looking through all of his stuff, and it was a whole mess. But anyway, we made it into the country, but we found out really quick we were literally just there to chauffeur him and Kate around. They did have a place for us to stay. But whenever we would get together with everybody for the group, it was like, we were just kind of shoved into the corner. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, all right, when it's time to go, all right, we're ready to leave, and we were just treated like, kind of like,
the help
second rate.
Yeah. And there's one, like kind of I think a really pivotal moment is we were driving around. I don't even know if we were going like to the mall or the outdoor mall. I don't know why, but we were driving them around, and Shawn just began to like berate Peter in the car over his driving. Apparently he did not approve at all.
I've never been like, we're trying to find our way around, and this is before like GPS and stuff. Like, we didn't have international cell phone plans or mobile data or any of that. So like, I have no idea where I'm going, and he is just screaming at me from the back seat. And
Kate finally jumped in and was like, Shawn, you have to stop. You cannot back off. You cannot talk to him like this. That's so mean. Stop it. And I remember finishing out the trip and just driving home, just so happy to be welcomed back into America so easily.
Oh man, that border crossing and that border crossing patrol guard, whatever, it was so cool. And he was like, "Welcome home, guys."
Thank you.
Thank you. Made it back to America.
Never leaving again.
Never leaving again.
So
We literally have not left the country since then.
I think we are. We're so scarred.
We're in Florida now. We went about as far south as you can go.
So okay, but the thing is here, this is really important though. So I know right away most people are gonna say, okay, this is just petty. You guys are just, you're like, yeah, he was mean. He's traveling. The thing I want to give people context. This is like, because there's about 3 other signers on that initial document, and everyone kind of has a different timeline in all this. You guys are really the earliest in the timeline of the whole thing. Like, you're at the conception of all this. And one of the things like that I think people need to understand is that it's not like this one thing. It is the consistent pattern. It's the consistent behavior and almost the ramping up of said behavior and patterns that your guys' testimony and what you're talking about is where we really see the ground level of things start. And when we see the consistent testimony of all these other people that, to be clear, weren't just some, disgruntled volunteers that had a moral failing.
Right.
These are people that
they were just like us,
real people. Yeah. And so we're the big thing right now with everything going on, like that being said, like you're early on in this whole thing. So was that like the breaking point for you guys, and then you were done? Oh,
Jesse, we are just getting started.
So like, I mean,
we're just getting.
I don't want to make this
right. You would think.
I don't want to make this like spill the tea moment, but like but where you're at, like, what would you say, like, because I want people to know that like again, you talk more about this on your podcast. There's going to be more coming out. There's going to be more documents. I mean, there's so much going on. That's not just this. The goal of this is to really help people understand the groundwork, and then they themselves, if they have their own testimonies, push them to the website, and share their testimony. Like, that was the whole point of my original video, was like, listen, if you have a testimony, and is what happened. We're getting hundreds of those coming in. But what was that? Like, if that wasn't the breaking point, what was the breaking point? Where did you guys finally say enough?
I think I want to touch lightly on one thing that's important for some other context that's not related to ministry. There was a moment in time when Shawn had come into town and we were in Bozeman, and he had flown in. He had bought a Subaru Forester offline, some auction site. I think he picked it up in Las Vegas, and then we were in Bozeman, and he was registering this Subaru Outback, and he had just moved to Harrisburg from Texas, I think. And I'm not going to say names, but some people that he knew in Bozeman had just sold their house and were getting ready to move. And Shawn registered that Subaru Outback. I was with him. I was watching him fill out the forms. He registered that Subaru Outback to that house, that address of that house. But he put his name on it. And I remembered asking him, what are you doing there? And he goes, well, I need to get Montana plates on this thing, on this car. And I'm like, well, you can't do that. And he said, no, well, I mean, when I'm over in, Pennsylvania, if I get pulled over with Montana plates for speeding or whatever, then they're just like, I can say, oh, I'm from out of state, I didn't know, and get off, the speeding ticket. But I'm thinking, yeah, but also like you're evading taxes. I'm also thinking, I know how much he loves to hunt. Mm-hmm. And I know how much, as a Montana resident, I know how much cheaper Montana hunting licenses are when you're a resident. And I'm like, are you trying to get your Montana registration so you can hunt in Montana? And like, and I was with him when he bought he bought a Tika 270. We went to Sportsman's Warehouse. He bought a Tika 270 with cash, which is fine. You can buy a gun with cash. But there was a whole thing around that too. And I saw those two things, those two events, and I thought there is something else going on that's bigger than just like the weird way he treated us. Shawn was a bully or mean or whatever. He didn't treat us well, whatever. But then there was the way that we weren't taken care of with like our reimbursements, and then the way that he would handle money and the way he would do these dealings, I could start to smell something really, really fishy. Yeah. And then we went down to Dallas it was 2010. It was in like August of 2010 for the Global Burn Summit, which is where we met Dave Hightower. Big shout out to Dave. Dave's in Tennessee. We ended up reconnecting with Dave through an amazing testimony story, and they became really close friends of ours, Dave and Becca. We love you guys so much. We miss you. And
so real quick though, you said
anyway,
Burn Global Summit. So within the 2 years, Burn has, I mean, people need to understand it exploded. Like it was massive.
It exploded.
This is before. This is years before Let Us Worship, which I can't say without seeing a lettuce and a guitar. Just constantly. But it was long before that. This is when Burn blew up.
Light a Candle didn't exist.
And this is about where about a year later, I jumped in the picture. 2011, 2012 is when I started in Burn. But it literally exploded. It was crazy. So within 2 years, you're having a global summit just to show the rate of growth. So go ahead.
Yeah, and do we want to say names or do we want to protect? Okay, we'll protect names. And so, we...
I couldn't stand it the very first night. We got there, and it was like a 2-hour drive from the airport to this location, this really rundown ranch in the middle of Texas, and there was no air conditioning in the van that we were all piled into. It was such a miserable drive.
You said July, right?
There to find
July,
out.
August.
Yeah, July or August. It was so bad. And mind you, we're still in Montana, so that kind of humidity is like
anything over 70, you're done.
It feels like it. And so, and then we get there and find out, regardless of your marital status, guys and girls have to sleep in separate quarters. Shawn and Kate got to sleep in a room together, but everybody else, and there were people with like babies, husbands and wives who came with babies.
What was the excuse though? Like, why did they say?
Didn't you say it was for purity purposes?
Purity purposes? Like
that must have been a callback to your IHOP days.
I know. I remember just initially being like, what? I would not have I don't want to stay in a room with a bunch of people I don't even know, and like I'm kind of an introvert, so this is like my worst nightmare. And and so that was really weird for me. And then the first night, the guy that they brought in to help lead the worship and everything.
Y'all know who it is. We won't say his name.
It was so hyper emotional. I remember the first night them essentially being like, if you're not on the floor crying out to God and all of this stuff, travailing, then essentially like, are you even saved? Just this manipulative, high, emotional.
That was like the labor pain era of worship, where like everyone was birthing something in the spirit. I was always like, I was never comfortable with that. And I'm like, I can't.
No, it did. It made me feel really just like, ugh. I just kind of want to go sit in a corner and cry, but not because the Lord is doing something, but because I feel so deeply uncomfortable.
You feel stuck.
And disturbed, and now I'm stuck. Like I'm stuck in the middle of nowhere, Texas, and I don't know what to do now because we can't leave. And so that was really, really difficult.
But then the last night,
it was the last morning.
Or the last morning, it was right before it was the service before we all left. One of the burn directors from, I think it was from Turkey or something like that, was giving the last call. And it was like the big call to missions, because there was like this huge heart for missions, and we need to go to the nations. But they wrote down all these different nations on different cards and then put them around on different tables. And the call was basically, we want everyone to go and put your cards, and you're making a commitment to go to the nations. But it wasn't just a suggestion. It was what was basically said was, if you don't get up right now and go put your name on one of these cards, you are not of us. Like, you don't belong to us. You are essentially anathema. Oof. Which is a word that I've learned as of late, but you are not of us. You do not love God. You are dishonoring him by not signing your name on one of those nations and committing before God that you will go to one of these nations this year, and you will go and spread the fire and do all this stuff. And so you want to say, what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Like, so we're sitting down and there's yelling from the stage, you come up here and sign your name. And if you don't stand up here and
make a commitment that you're going to go to the nations and then go sign your name down. We're not going to check on you. You're doing this in front of God.
Yeah.
So, and I remember just like sitting there, like
We
fighting
looked at
back
each other,
tears.
yeah.
And I was like, I can't
do
stand
that.
up.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, one, I can't be coerced into going to the nations. If I'm supposed to go to the nations, I need the Lord to make that abundantly clear in our lives.
We have still not gotten out of the country. We were scarred by our Canada.
Canada
You
ruined
can't
it
have
for us.
spoiler alert based on the last story. So obviously,
Come on.
obviously
were
you
so
didn't go.
kind.
You didn't sign up.
No.
So was there
We
a reaction to you
didn't.
guys not doing that? Was there a condemning of you guys or
No.
No? That's good.
No, we kind of just...
We kind of swallowed that, and I mean I know you feel
I
it.
think we stood up, but I did not put our names down. I said, at this point, we're going to be the only people still sitting.
We were literally,
Like,
we would have been the only ones sitting, so I think we did end up.
We'll
I'm
just
just
stand
picturing
up,
like
I'm not putting my
given
name down.
our pre-show conversation, I'm just picturing an office scene where like everyone has the nation on their head and you're like what nation
I admire your cultured success in society.
what nation are you going to? or
Right,
I'm picturing you, Amanda, just like so daintily trying to walk past the table like you did something.
Can I go to Canada?
I'm not here. we'll keep
We'll go to Canada.
tonight.
We'll give it another shot. Round 2.
Oh man.
But yeah, but that for us was like, when we got home, we were like, we need to talk. What we said was, we need to talk to Shawn about this. Like, this just felt weird. It felt really manipulative and highly emotional. And like, I can't imagine that like he's on board like with how that was handled. So surely, like, we're friends. We've been traveling together. We're doing ministry with the Burn. So we just need to call and talk to him. And so we set up a call. And we were driving in our car. It was night. Like, I can vividly remember where we were. And we pulled our car over and put him on speaker in our car. And we're just like, hey, can we just like, and this is literally the tone. Like, I get it. If we came out really aggressive, I could understand
a defensive
response. But we really, and honestly, I'm really proud of us because back in the day, you learn a lot about communication by failing at communication a lot. And so in this moment, I was really, like I was really proud of us because we did not let our emotions get the best of us, but we were just very honest. Like, hey, we didn't appreciate the way that this leader it felt very manipulative. It felt highly emotional. I feel like that's a little inappropriate to kind of make people feel like they're forced to go to the nations. That seems like that's something that the Lord should prompt an individual or a couple to do, not someone telling them they have to do it. Like, the whole weekend felt just weird. It's weird that married couples were separated, but you and Kate weren't. And like, just the whole thing felt really off to us. Like, we left just feeling really like, what's going on here? This doesn't feel right. That's how we said it. That is the tone in which we said it. And we were not prepared.
I think that we've blocked out because there's moments in time where I'll get like little memories of his response, and it's like a gut punch.
Yeah.
Like feeling like you are just undressed and beaten mercilessly, verbally, like you are nothing, you are nobody. Nobody, you are.
We were essentially told, how dare you talk about this great man of God, and like, you essentially, who are you? You guys are nobody. Like, you stand condemned, and you are going to be condemned before God for what you've said. And you know, just, I mean, like I said, I mean, it went on for about 5 minutes straight. He didn't take a breath. Just, I mean, laid us bare, and he finally got done, and we were just like, well, I think then maybe we shouldn't be a part of the Burn anymore. And he goes, yeah, I don't want you to be a part of it anymore. And so we were like, okay. And we hung up and just cried.
I'm so sorry.
Like, we just cried. And just kind of stuffed it. We kind of felt like, well, you know, you don't tell anybody. You don't, like, who you're going to tell, who you're going to talk to, because in that environment and in a lot of those circles, that's kind of standard.
Well, this is really big, really poignant here, though. Like, you bring just in that question, who do you tell? Burn is a parachurch ministry. So, you know, you're in a church. Pastor lashes out on you. You go to an elder. You go to an associate pastor. You have a structure. Say what you want about the Presbyterians. That's a good structure.
Right.
It helps, and like that's why churches that have an elder board, and I'm Anabaptist. We believe in the community of the brethren, so like we hold each other accountable. It's a big part of our the way our church is built. So in the burn, in your basically, this is your church, your full-time ministry. Because I know one of the things I noticed being part of the burn for a while is a lot of people in the burn don't go to church. It's like the burn is the
Right.
church. It's kind of this weird
Right.
symbiotic thing where it's like, well, where's your church? It's like, well, it's the burn. The burn's not a church. Well, it's a parachurch. So it's like, so you're in this
Yep.
moment and you ask that question, who do we go to? Was there anything in place for you guys, like any kind of accountability or any structure in this setup where you have someone to go to?
Bro, you said a bad word. You just said a bad word, man. Accountability. What are you talking about? Who's your covering? Are you kidding me?
We were asked
The
that
Lord's our covering.
all the time when
Yeah.
we would go pitch
Same.
the burn at churches, and
Same.
they would say, well, who's
Yes.
your covering?
Yes.
And we were told that, like, that's a bad word. If churches ask
Yes.
you that, you essentially shake the dust off your sandal and say, you're lost, you're missing out, and move on. I mean, that was kind of our marching
Okay, we never
orders.
got that. It was
If
for us.
somebody-
We just said, well, the Lord's our covering, or we would say, hey, like we would actually say Sean's our covering, like we would kind of point to him. But
Right.
but yeah, like the covering question, and but it does beg the question, like you're saying, like in that moment where you just got a lashing, and you're like, well, what do we do? And
We had nobody. Because we weren't a part of a church.
That's
We
not
had
totally
we
true.
had a side ministry that now we look back on and was like, it was a church split. It was really a church split. I think unbeknownst to us, we were very naive. And that's what it was. And so that on that side, that was breaking down as
Yeah.
well. And those leaders were as equally as toxic in how they treated and talked to us. So, and we didn't feel like we could go to our parents. Kind of felt like it would be met with a little bit of like,
They wouldn't have.
especially on one, like not so much with the burn, but the other ministry and who
Yeah.
we were involved with, it would have been a little like,
We told you so.
we told you so. Like
Yeah.
we could have told you that's where that would
Yeah.
have gone. So we swallowed it and we choked it down and just went,
For
all right,
15
we
years.
had one last burn on the table and we already had like people signed up and we're like, well, we're not going to cancel. People have already given their
and
time.
just people
and
know
we've got
is
the
like when
building
you say you have a
secured and-
burn, it's a worship night. Like when you have one more
Yeah,
burn, so you have
worship
people
night.
that are coming out, you have slots filled out. Anywhere between
Yeah.
10 to 40 people are going to be rotating on stage to play stuff. So it's like, you're not going to cancel it. And then the heart of it's still there of like,
Right.
we want to worship the Lord. But I mean, but that goes to this question where like it's heartbreaking to hear. And it's, I still have a hard time like thinking about just knowing what I know now and the way I see church and ministry and like the way I look at ministries differently and I qualify ministries totally differently than I did, 10, 15 years ago. Totally different person that way. But, the number one question I mean, you probably have in yourself and I have as well is like, why wait? And you answered it partially, but like, why wait so long? And like, why now in this moment? Because a lot of people could say you're being opportunistic. You're just jumping on the bandwagon, and I'm kind of the same way with my stuff. It's like, yeah, that was like, 10, almost 10 years ago now. Right? It's like for you guys, being at the foundational level of this whole thing, like very beginning, why now do you find this reason to even talk about this stuff? And to be self-reflective, do you feel it's one of those things like you're out, like to think of yourself, do you feel like you're outside the statute of limitations in a way, or like how do you guys process that with with everything going on now where it's at now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, when it happened, we just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
We just buried it and moved on. Like, we didn't follow him on any socials. Like, we needed to just give our hearts really time to just heal. And so we really just let it go. I mean, that was like 2010. And I think probably around maybe 2018, 2019, like when Instagram was up and coming, but when it really began to really morph into kind of what it is now, in my random Instagram feed, I must have been following people who followed him because little videos of his or pictures would pop up. And so I'd kind of like, oh, like totally forgot about him, honestly. Like, oh, Shawn Foy. Oh my goodness, what is he up to now? Like, what are him and Kate doing? Like, oh my goodness, they've got all these kids now, and and so I just kind of from a distance, like, oh, all right, oh, they're still doing the burn, and it just really, just kind of like wasn't, I'm in trouble, at all. Like, I'm a really private person. I do not like.
This is really hard for her.
Starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Was like pulling like teeth for me. I'm like, I don't want to. I was really, really bullied in school, severely bullied, and so seeing the way people talk to one another online made me just like, I don't want to do it. I can't do this. I cannot share our journey, our story, and open myself up to that kind of criticism. Like, that really scares me. But yet we felt like all the Lord had done in our life, in our story, in our testimony. We just had felt for years this like churning of like, we should start a podcast, we should. And it finally just was like time, months ago when we started it, but it was really, again, and then in 2020, obviously he really was very prominent on the scene. Hard not to see him if you're
literally all over the news.
And all of, right, and he's all over the news. And like we bought the Super Spreader film.
Oh wow, really?
Watched it, and and we're really just like.
I have text messages still. Like, I texted him or after we watched it. I said, "Bro, we just watched it. Like, I didn't know you guys were going through so much. Like, I'm really sorry to hear all that you've gone through. Like, we love you. Hope you're well.
Like, we hope, like, I can't imagine losing friendships like that. Like, that must have been so tough. And like, that was my knee-jerk reaction to it.
Interesting.
Was like, man, like, this is really, that had to have hurt. Like, that had to have been really, really tough. But then as I like sat back and started thinking about it a little more, I was a little like, but there were some things that were said in the way it was said in the documentary that were like, that's really a lot like what we had experienced, that kind of attitude and behavior and kind of like either get on board or get out of my way kind of thing. And I was a little like, I don't know that this has gotten
when that came up, because I noticed that too. My first thought immediately, especially living in the Seattle area for years, immediately I was like Mark Driscoll, because Mark Driscoll literally did that notorious Elephant Round Table video. He talks about how you're either on the bus or you're under the bus. That was like Mark Driscoll's thing, and to see how much Mark and Shawn hit it off and how much they've been doing together in kind of the recent history, it's like, oh, that makes sense. You guys, it goes back to that mandate vision. It's like, this is the vision, and you're either on it and you're working in it, or you're going to be under it. That's how it works.
Yeah.
And so, you're kind of saying you were kind of sniffing that out a little bit when the way things were said and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that when we swallowed everything, I think I had an opinion. My opinion was eventually Shawn's going to burn enough bridges that his tactics won't work anymore. People are going to wisen up to his tactics, and he's going to stop. I don't mean this disrespectfully, but I thought he'll eventually grow up. He'll eventually figure out that that's not the right way to treat people, and that kind of manipulation doesn't work. But then we started to see, he's actually gotten way more efficient, and he's figured out how to do this on a much bigger scale. And so, Super Spreader was kind of that, opened our eyes to that. And then the political stuff, when he started doing the things on the political scene, I remember looking at Amanda, I remember looking at you and saying, I don't think Shawn is really interested in winning. And this is my opinion, but I don't think he's really interested in winning as much as getting his name in the political sphere, because Shawn's a dominionist.
Yes.
And I think that the 7 mountain mandates, one of those mountains is government, of course. Yeah. And also when Shawn was at Bethel, I said the same thing about that. When he got signed to Bethel, I was like, Shawn doesn't belong to Bethel. Like, he is way too much of a wild stallion.
I remember as Bethel alumni, I was like, what? It's like,
I know, right? I think everybody was like,
I give it 2 years.
Yeah,
exactly.
100%.
Totally.
Yeah, and so, but very convenient. They had a big platform in it, and again, my opinion, but I mean, it's an educated opinion. And so then when everything broke down with Bethel, I thought, well, of course, I mean, that you could have That's not news to me. And so I was like watching him set up base camps on all the 7 at the beginning of each of the 7 mountains.
Yeah.
And then it was really for us to answer your question.
No,
so
it's good.
very
You're
long-winded answer, but it was so. Also, in the midst of all this stuff with Mike Bickle breaks at IHOP.
Right.
And,
Gosh.
I remember the night that he like rolled over and was like, Amanda. And I was like, what? And he was like, look.
Mike's
and
a
I was
bad
just
guy.
like,
Because you both
like,
have
all
history
the-
there.
I
You
just-
both have that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not like
Yeah.
not years by any means. We had a lot of family who stayed on for years. I mean, very, very connected. But you know, for us, it was just more like, oh my goodness, what is going on right now? And so that's breaking. And so we started watching Blaze and Christina Fourier's Wake Up and Win podcast as they were kind of covering
Yeah, shout out
stuff.
Blaze.
And we just kind of, yeah, shout out
up,
to
Blaze?
those guys. And so we were just kind of would watch at a distance, you know, when they'd put things out, we'd watch them. And so then there was one night, again, we kind of stopped everything, you know, kind of fell quiet with the Bickle and IHOP stuff. And, but then there was one night that we were watching a podcast. I forget what they were talking about, and we're kind of like, I think we're on our phones as it's playing. We're such millennials.
I guess I'm interested.
But all the, whatever, see if you say anything, you know. And so like we're kind of listening and on our phones, and all of a sudden they say Christy Gafford, part of Burn 24/7, and has just released a video about being let go. And we were like, both of us set our phones down and we're like, wait, what? And so we stopped their video and go and find Christy's video, because we're like, we want to hear this. Like, what on never, I didn't think I'd ever hear anybody talk about burn or anything bad, you know.
Pretty
anything like
tight-lipped
that.
as far as organizational, like,
yeah.
for as long as it ran, there
And
was
I
no
kinda
like
thought-
leak or anything like that for any history of the whole burn
Right.
ever. Yeah.
Right.
Nah.
And I think there was part of me that thought, like, we just got Shawn on a bad day. Like, surely that's not like a normal thing, right? Like that we just got him on a bad day. And so we watched Christy's video, just her testimony of what had happened, and we were just like, that sounds really familiar, and that's like really sad, and that makes me really, really sad for her. And you know, and so he just reached out.
Well, I saw, Jesse, I saw your comment. You said, hey, reaching out to you, sis,
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. You had made
Yeah.
a comment on her video. And I'm like, and I knew about your podcast because I had, through American Gospel, like I had seen,
Yeah.
and also I knew some of your story. And so I'm like, if Jesse's reaching out, why? Like, I didn't know you had a connection to the
Yeah.
burn. I had no
Yeah.
idea that
Yeah, we
you,
did not know that.
I found that out
Yeah.
later, but I'm like, wait a second. There's like,
So
there's some stuff going on here.
Yeah, so he just commented, just like encouragement, like, hey, just to let you know, like, you're not alone. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Just know, like, we're praying for you. And then just sent her an email, just kind of like, hey, just so you know, like, this was our experience with the burn, and not super detailed, but just
Yeah.
like, just no, you're not
Commiserating
crazy.
a little bit.
Like, we just want to
Yeah.
tell you, yeah, you're not crazy, and I'm really sorry again that this happened to you. And then it has turned into now you're not the only person. Actually, there's quite a few, and here we are.
Here we are.
Well, that's
Here we are.
gosh, it is so hard to talk about this and to elaborate without sounding like there's a vendetta or a bitterness to it all. And I think
Right.
that's the thing. Like I mean, even with my stuff, like when we were filming for American Gospel 3, AG3, Brandon Kimber in my house, actually slept in this room. Sorry, Brandon, it's my office now. But he was packing up cameras and stuff, and we were just talking about other ministry experiences, and Shawn came up, and he's like, how do you guys know Shawn Foy? And we started talking, and it ended up being like, he was like, we got to talk about this. And we were like, we haven't told anyone about this. Like we've never talked about this. Like, this is not something we talk about. Because no one else has ever talked about it. That's the thing. It's like there was no other. And so even Kaylee, at the time she was pregnant with Elida, she was just like, I don't know if we could talk. Like, she was like, what if Shawn sees this? What if it's like, do we hate Shawn? I'm like, we don't hate Shawn. She's like, but that happened. I'm like, it did happen, didn't it? It's like, but what do we do with this? And so it's very hard. And I think that's the thing that like I see, just to really, for Christy and her boldness and all that, to put that out there really helped other people such as yourselves and even myself to be like, this isn't just a bad day. That, and it kind of brings everything full circle, is that the whole point of this is that you have someone who's being held up as a pillar of influence, of excellence, of boldness, of, if you're a Christian nationalist, Christian nationalism, if you're about, maybe people will say he's sharing the gospel, like he's doing all this stuff, growing this massive platform. And then there's this other part where like, well, yes, and you could say maybe there's some good fruit there, but then once you start digging beneath the surface, you're like, wait a minute, there is so much here. There's a lot of leaven in this bread, and you're trying to figure out why, like what is going on. And I think that's I think we're all of us. It's not a takedown. It's not a vendetta. It's not a bitterness. It's that, hey, I think this has gone way farther than you think, and there's a trail of bodies behind you that have been trying to tell you. And at this point, Matthew 18's been in play. And not just with you guys, and not even with our crew, with some of the stuff we went through.
Matthew 18's in that trail of bodies. It's like every single one of those bodies.
Yeah, it's there. And so that's where it gets to the point where I look at some of the discernment ministry guys. I'm like, I get it now. Like, I get why you do a public rebuke. I get why you do a public call out, because at some point the platform gets so big where it's like, is there anything else left to do than that? And so kind of like a weird segue, but I think it's going to explain a lot of things for people. You, in all of this, so theologically, you guys have 180'd so hard. Oh my gosh. So like, so you mentioned American gospel. And we're in this phase where like you're coming back to Shawn, kind of a little bit of backtrack, but kind of contextualize for us. What happened to you guys theologically from terrible phone call in Texas in the middle of summer where you're like, I guess we're done with the burn, to where you're at now, to when you see Shawn? It's not just like, because for me, I know it was not just a way things operate, but it was also a theological thing. We're like, oh man, like, not only are your practices dangerous, but kind of your theology is kind of dangerous too. Where kind of walk us through that point for you guys.
We were down here visiting. We were living in we lived in Nashville for about 8 years. We moved from Montana to Nashville, which is where we met Dave and Becca. Yeah. Shout out to Dave and Becca. And so we would come down here to Florida to visit my Amanda's dad and stepmom, and they were going through a reformation of their own. They were part of this thing called Christian Healing Ministries that was dappling into some witchcraft and getting into some weird stuff. And so, because Amanda's mom had passed away in 2009. In fact, we didn't say this, but the day that we launched the Burn of Missoula was the day after her mom died of cancer and pancreatic cancer. Sorry. And Amanda's like, we're going to show up. We're going to be there because I want to show that I have strong faith. Even though my mom just died, I'm not going to cry. I'm going to swallow it, and we're going to worship God and be and all that.
You don't grieve in the charismatic world.
and we've had two we talked about this in our podcast too, but we had two miscarriages, same thing. Yeah. And so her dad had remarried this woman. They were going through this reformation of their own, realizing this like inner healing stuff is not biblical.
Mm-hmm. And they knew we were still very much involved in like 24/7 prayer and worship, the charismatic world.
We were helping to launch Franklin Prayer House, the House of Prayer in Franklin, Tennessee, with Ryan Hall, and I mean,
so that was still very much. And so when we come down and have dinners and talk, they would just kind of slow drip, like, hey, there's this series we saw called Wide as the Gate. We have the DVD series if you'd like to watch that. And we're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And then they're like, also, there's this new documentary. It's called American Gospel, Christ Alone. Maybe you guys should watch that. Like, you can rent it and that might be helpful for you guys to watch, because they had already seen all this stuff. So they already were knowing like all the big errors in a lot of these camps. And so when we were still down visiting, he started Wide as the Gate. I tried to stay awake. He's a night owl, and I conked out. And so I'd be woken up at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like,
they're going,
oh my gosh.
they're going through talking about Lou Engle and Mike Bickle and all these, all these people that like I've met, personally, have deep connections
It's so
to.
weird when you see them in the documentaries. You're like, oh.
I'm like, lady, you're killing my sacred cows here.
Just
Like, back up.
explaining through scripture why their scriptural references are bunk and don't, and all of that. So then we get home, and that's when we watch American Gospel. And that was just like the whole time, like jaws dropped. And I mean, by the time we got to the end of it, my first comment as I turned and I looked at Peter and I said, I didn't kill my mom.
Oh my
For like
goodness.
10 years. I walked feeling like my weak faith,
Amanda.
that I should have called her up from the grave. I should have I didn't even realize, I think, that I carried that for 10 years, that I felt like it was my fault. And for the first time, I just like cried and cried and cried and cried and just grieved her loss and just let that weight of like that burden, that it was somehow my responsibility to heal her off my shoulder.
And the 2 miscarriages too, the same thing. We went through the grief and like dealing with grief on that too.
And so that was really pivotal for us, that we were just like, it just dismantled it. And we were able to look back and go, all of the years and all of the times that we sat there going, something just isn't right. Something just isn't right. I can't tell you why, because I don't read my Bible, because that's old and dusty, and we want the Rhema now word, and we don't touch the Bible unless we need it to support something that we want it to support, and so we didn't read the Bible, so we didn't have that helping guide our being a lamp into our feet, and a light into our path. We didn't have that, and so it was able to articulate, that's what's wrong. That's all why we always felt so off. And so that really kind of thrust us into, well, now we lay it all on the table. Nothing is off the table now. Like, what, Lord, what have we, I don't even think we were saved. I mean, we really got to that point where like, I don't ever think we were genuinely saved. The way that we lived, the fruit of our life. Sure, we were doing these ministry things from the outside. Sure, it might look that way for how we, let people perceive. But like, I know what was happening on the weekends. I know what was happening, like we were living a kind of a double life, if you will, just because
like,
we were saved. And
gosh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just, I feel that so much, because that was a big part of that weight of and that weight of I just got to do one more worship night. I gotta play a little bit longer. I gotta contend a little bit longer. It's such a weight, and it's such a hard thing to realize you're under, because it seems as though that's the thing that you're supposed to be carrying. Like it is a mantle, a mandate, a thing that you are carrying. So why wouldn't it be heavy? And then when you come out from under it, and you're like, gosh, it hits so hard. It's like that verse of like, my yoke is easy. And it's like, Amen. And it changes everything so quickly. And like, I don't know if you've heard what, like Kaylee and I, we bawled our eyes out at the end of it. But I think it was because it was the first time we actually understood the gospel. I think it was the first. We were like, what are we? Like, I'm right there with you. Like, were we even saved? Like you said, like the weekend, like we would do these worship nights and then we'd go drinking. Like, it was just a thing you did. And it wasn't just us. It was like us and Shawn and the leaders and the premier speakers and the premier conference speakers. It was like, it was cool when you got invited to the bar with them. And then you're like, wait a minute, like, what is this? And so it's like, it is such a weight. And like, I can't believe you guys didn't leave the faith after all that. Like,
I know.
I mean, one would say maybe you never had the faith to begin with, but the fact that that the Lord kept you in his hands that whole time in that way, and that you were still even open to hearing the word and talking about the faith is like a miracle in itself.
To him who has been forgiven much loves much. And I think that was something that we realized we realized of how much God had forgiven us. Like I started to recognize that my sin really, really meant something. Like there was a weight to my sin, that every lash, every nail wound, every pierce of the crown, that he was in representative, he was taking that for me. We talk so much in the charismatic world about how God loves us so much, and that's true. And he does love us so much. He loves us so much that while we were yet sinners, he died for us. That he didn't just die; he was brutalized. Like a sheep before his shears was silent, he didn't open his mouth. He did not defend himself. He was just. And he was God in the flesh. Okay, and I'm going to set the record straight here. He did not empty himself in the sense that he was no longer God. He was fully God in the flesh. He was fully man, and he was fully God. And in that form, he was bruised for our iniquities. He was crushed. He took on the punishment that I deserved. And by his wounds, we are healed. And that is not a physical healing.
Yeah.
Her mom was not physically healed. Those babies did not stay in her belly. But my sin, I don't have to pay for that, because he did it for me, and he didn't have to. And when I realized that, it was like literal scales fell from my eyes. It's like I felt scales hit my lap. And I remember looking down, looking for the scale, like, what was that? And it was like, I was blind, but now I see. There is a veil over the eyes of the unbeliever.
Yeah.
And so when I say I don't know if I was biblically illiterate, this thing, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand. It didn't make any sense. I remember I grew up, the school I grew up in, Bible class, you get a grade for reading your Bible and doing a devotion. If you don't do it, you don't get the grade. And so I read it, and I read Psalm 100, shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth, worship the Lord. What did that verse mean to you? That I'm supposed to shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Got my grade. But I didn't understand how shout for joy. Why do I shout for joy? What does that even mean? And then when I realized that my sin means something, and the grace of God is not cheap. It's why our podcast is called Grace with Conviction, because the grace of God is not cheap, and I am convicted of the reality that it's not only not cheap, but it's very costly, but it's also free. Jesus didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world. The world, we are all condemned already. We were born in sin. And I didn't understand that, Jesse. I didn't understand that. So you want to say, so are we Calvinists? Are we cessationists? I don't know. Don't put okay, I would say don't put God into a box. Don't put us into a box, because that is such a shallow-minded question to ask. I am a follower of Christ. I am a sinner saved by grace through faith. I once was blind, but now I see. Oh my gosh, how much freedom it comes with that. And so then we look at the situation that we're talking about, and we see the wake of bodies and the mangled up Matthew 18s that have been attempted, and we look around and we go, this is everything. The gospel is everything. And people need to understand that. And people like us that have been through this, I believe that God put us or allowed us to go through the things that we went through for such a time as this, so that we could stand up and stick our neck out for the people that are actually accusing us of being divisive. That we could stick our neck out and say, no, you don't understand. Like Jesus, get a fire, smoke detectors. Hey, prophetic sign, right?
Bring in the heat. Bring in the heat.
That the people that don't understand what we're saying here is like, listen, you may not understand what's going on here, but like we're literally sticking our neck out here so that we can speak up and say, you may not understand all this. You may still be caught up in believing a lot of this stuff. And we're not here to reform your doctrine. We're not here to turn you into Calvinists. Go watch American Gospel. please do, because it will.
Shameless AG
And
plug.
if you have no response, if you have no response to it, okay, fair enough. But that's not like God is giving us an opportunity to stand on His word and to stand on the conviction of the things that
and
He's
the
done
big
in
part
us.
there, though, I think that really full circles it really well, is that for me, and I think you guys may echo this same sentiment, is that when an offense is done against a leader, you're quickly you either justify the offense because the leader's done, or you defend the leader because of the vision. Like, you're kind of in this position of like, no, this guy's got a mandate, he's got a vision, he's got something to do. Like, there's going to be things that happen wrong. You know, David messed up too, but David still had a call and he's supposed to do, right? Like, that's still there, right? But when you then get a fear of God and an understanding of the gospel, and then you see things done by the leader in the name of the gospel, then that's where it's like that rises up in you, and you're
Enough's
just like,
enough.
wait a minute, like being mean, having a bad experience, whatever, that's one thing. But now it's like, no, this is more than just that. It's, you are doing this in the name of the gospel. You are there is a trail of bodies behind you in the name of the gospel. And that's where it really, for me, it shifted this whole, like, it's not just about me being upset. It's that the gospel is being marred and
Being maligned
and exploited, like, to the tune of millions. And it's like, it's not that I think I deserve the money. it's that this is like, what you're building is off of the gospel, but you're not even sharing it. Like, what like, it changes the whole thing. And so I feel for you guys, and I hear, go ahead, Amanda, what you were saying.
Oh, well, and I was just going to say, too, as we were talking today, I told him, too, I said, we have 3 kids. I have a son and 2 daughters. And I don't ever want to have to sit down with them one day as they tell me something that a leader did to them, or something that a leader said to them, or a way that they were abused within the walls of the church. Like, I don't ever want to have to that be something that's a part of my children's story. And, you know, like, the best I can do is to equip my kids with the word of God so they can spot
Get some discernment,
the truth from error, you know, but also that they understand, like, this is okay, this is not. And, like, we have to be able to say, okay, church, stop. Like, we have to just stop. Can everybody just stop for a second? Like, can we take a breather? Think about, like, our own children. Like, you know, the world is always touting, we got to leave the world better for the next generation, you know, and especially within the church, there's so much talk about the next generation and all of that. Okay, what are we leaving them? What are we modeling to them? What are we showing them? Like, in that, and so, if anything, too, I think for me, like, that is a big heartbeat as well, is like, I don't want our kids to inherit this mess, you know, and, like, that's touting itself as from God or whatever, you know. And so I think that's a big one for me as well, is just like, oh, can we just all take a breath for a second and, like, engage our intellects here, and, like, just, like, not be afraid to look behind the curtain, even if that means you're gonna have to reconcile some things, because it's so much better, because God is so merciful and he's long suffering and full of love and grace and compassion, that, you know, like, if you have to dismantle some things, he's a good God, he's a good Father, and he will be right there. He won't leave you high and dry, you know. And so let's be willing to examine ourselves and then test what somebody who's claiming, even in the name of God, is saying and reconcile that.
You used the word picture of the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day, and how like when, they get into the wizard's chambers and he's like, don't look over, don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah, after they've done what he's asked them to do, and they come back like, all right, we've done this now. What do you got for us? And then he backpedals, and then when Toto, notices that, wait, there's a curtain and there's some feet, and then he starts being like, don't go over there, with the smoke blowing out of his ear, right? Trying to like deter them from realizing that there's nothing there. This was just all a distraction, a way to kind of keep you in submission to do what he wanted you to do.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing a lot of right now, is there's some big scary words that get tossed out,
divisive,
as a way to kind of, because I would never want to stand before the Lord and hear him say, I have this against you. None of us who are in the middle of this, like, that is nothing. We are very delicate and recognize that, like, we all are going to stand before the Lord and give an account for the things that we did out of our own, for those in Christ, that our works will be weighed and from the Lord, and outside of Christ, that's the throne judgment that nobody should want to be a part of, but like he sees it all. God, I think we forget that. God sees it all. So we might be able to hide ourselves.
So like
but
this is kind of I think this is a good place to land in all this. So like it is so hard in all of this to do. There's two things we want to do, and they're in opposition of each other. The one thing is we want accountability, and you don't want more hurt and more people to either, because we've even in our circles of people from the burn, I've gotten probably 20-30 people have reached out to me personally, same story, same thing. Some are no longer part of the faith, some have left the faith entirely, and part of that was a catalyst in that, of like seeing the way someone handles it, and like we don't want that, right? So like there's one thing you want. The other thing you want is you don't want to sow discord and like be brother against brother and have a bunch of deviancy kind of thing. That's not what you're trying to do. But Scripture is so, like, Paul was so clear on this, and it's one of those things where it's like, when people are like, judge not lest you be judged, and you're like, bring that back. But then Paul's also like really clear about, don't judge the world. What good do you have judging the world? Judge amongst the brethren. And there's this constant back and forth that we have to do as believers, where we don't want to sow discord. And obviously, I hope people understand your hearts. You're clearly not trying to sow discord in this, but we want the gospel to ring true, and we want to know that those that are claiming to be ministers of the gospel to carry themselves as such. So, kind of closing thoughts for you guys. If someone, if you were to kind of give the elevator pitch to someone of like, why Peter and Amanda with where you're at now? Why? I guess not so much why, but what would be the thing moving forward for you, or what would be the thing you would say to someone that's on the camp of saying, well, he's led worship to thousands, if not millions of people. He is proclaiming Jesus' name all throughout the nation. He led worship. People should like all these things they would say in defense of him and stay in that place. Which just to spoiler alert, I would say, there's a lot of great things. Like that old mantra, God can draw a straight line with a crooked stick. Like that's the sovereignty of God. He's really good at that. But what would what would you guys say and all that with someone who's still deeply involved in Shawn's ministry, maybe even still a supporter of Shawn's ministry? And where do you guys land in all this, and what's your heart in all this that people can take away with?
Read your Bible.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly, it's something I wrestle with. I'm just going to be totally honest and transparent. I wrestle with that. Yeah. Even as we've walked through this, I've wrestled with that very similar question. Well, what do? You've got this person leading worship and all the baptizing people and on all of this stuff. But I think then I have to remind myself when I look at the content and I look at who really gets the glory at the end of it? And it seems like there's a lot of Shawn gets the glory. Shawn's the great man that causes an earthquake to happen because of what he's doing. And when I start to look at that, I go, just because it seems like there's something good, like, doesn't mean that God is necessarily in it. Charles Finney is quoted as being one of the like great revivalists. You look into Charles Finney's background, he denied the substitutionary atonement.
He said it was
denies
the most
original
ridiculous
sin.
doctrine in like most, like I think he's almost like an antichrist doctrine. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Right.
What gospel are you sharing?
And he created revival as something that he said it's a man-made movement, not born by the Spirit through manipulation and emotionalism. And so someone like Shawn, who readily points to Charles Finney as the like revivalist, I go, well, hyper-emotionalism gets people to do what you want. And so we have to keep our emotions in check and submit them to the Word of God. And I will say, in those environments, it can be really difficult to do, to test the spirits, but the Word tells us to test the spirits, to not. Satan parades as an angel of light. I'm not calling Shawn Satan, but don't get it twisted. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that we're to test. There is a different Jesus. There is another gospel, and it can really package itself pretty. Good. But when you begin to really look at the layers, like I said, really stop and really begin to look and listen, then I think it's easier to say something is just not quite on.
Yeah,
par,
I think it's
well said.
Very well said.
Okay,
I think it's that idea that the gospel is it's something that you have to when you fully grasp it and you fully understand it. And why I say fully, you can never fully comprehend the mystery of Christ. That's one of the things. But when you get the foundational level and you understand how crucial it is to have that, and why Paul was so vehement, like in Galatians, like, oh, foolish Galatians, how quickly you've turned to another gospel. And you're like, what do you mean? They almost had it. He's like, you can't almost have it. You have to have it. Like that thing where he says, I came to you knowing nothing, in teaching, like that passage says, I didn't come to you with high and lofty vision or wisdoms of man. I came to you preaching and knowing only Christ and Christ crucified. It's like, he wasn't impressed by the big speeches, the lofty dreams and visions, like in Colossians, disqualifying people because they haven't had encounters, dreams and visions. Are you preaching Christ and Christ crucified? And that's it. And like, it really is as simple as coming back to that in so many ways, where it's, do we have that or do we not have it? And then the fruit of that, it can manifest in so many ways. So yeah, very, very well put. This has been so good.
Wowza.
It really has.
Hey, it's good to get to know you, Jesse, man. I feel like we've known you our whole life, but it's good to, chop it up with
really,
you.
it is. And I feel like we have so much more we can talk about and go over, and I'm sure we will, honestly. Like, there's just so many things, especially in theology breakdowns and pivoting from one to another. That's a whole, it's almost like you make a whole YouTube channel about it. There's so much you can do with it.
I know. Could you imagine?
But you guys have been such a blessing. I really appreciate all of this. There's going to be more just in regards to all this Shawn stuff that's going to be coming out. And again, it's not because we're like tabloid chasing. It's that we want people to understand what's happening, where things are at. And so I want people to know, follow you guys. More to come in a lot of ways, not just in that, but with your testimony, your story, Grace with Conviction. I've binged the first 3 or 4 episodes and I loved it, and it was good. Amanda goes on fire in the first 5 minutes of the first episode. She just tears it up. And so
I'm going to be honest with you too. I've been watching the analytics, and every time she talks, we get more views and more engagement. And whenever I talk, so I was like, I'm just going to set you up and then let you go for it. So, that's awesome. No, I love it. I love when you get going. It's amazing.
It's like good. It's super good. But I appreciate you guys so much. I'm looking forward to doing more of this. And just thank you for everything, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Much love, brother.
Thanks, guys. Well, hey, guys, I hope you found that helpful. I hope you had some good takeaways from it. I hope it was... I hope the spirit of it came across, that it wasn't, again, this whole thing, and we're more likely to have more interviews with some other people that were original signers on this that go through their story, their testimony, and kind of where they're at in their faith now. Similar to the Back to Bethel series where, how has charismatic experiences and theology changed your faith? Are you still in the faith? Have you left the faith? And I hope you can look at Peter and Amanda as a wonderful testimony of God's grace in these situations where men may do things, where ministry experiences may sway you, but in all of it, the gospel still rings true. So thank you so much for you guys coming on. Thank you guys for watching this, and please go follow them. There's a couple channels that are just like on YouTube that I think are gold mines. One I almost comment on every time is, if you haven't followed him, is Jonathan Allen Wright, hilarious Christian YouTuber. I love him to death. He has like not enough followers. I feel that way with these guys where they are pumping out content, especially as a couple, which I find so helpful, discussing their process, that if you're in that process of coming out of the charismatic movement, that is for you. And they've done such a good job with it. So hope you've been blessed by this. Hope you've enjoyed it. And hope you guys are blessed. Thank you so much.